I'm Elena Brooks, 36, and my sister told my daughter the cabin was for family only. She said it smiling. That was the part I couldn't stop thinking about later. Not the words, the smile. My daughter Ava stood there in her little yellow hoodie holding a paper bag of marshmallows she'd bought with her own allowance money. 12 years old. Quiet, kid. The kind that says thank you to waitresses and cries when dogs get hurt in movies. She blinked twice like she hadn't heard correctly. Then my sister Candace laughed softly and said, "Oh, honey, don't look so sad. It's just immediate family this weekend." Immediate family? Ava looked at me, not crying. Worse, waiting for me to explain why she apparently wasn't one. The lake house sat behind. Candace like something from a magazine. Big cedar porch. White string lights. KX lined near the dock. The same lake house I paid half for, actually, more than half. But nobody at those family gatherings liked to say that part out loud. Candace's husband, Drew, suddenly became fascinated with unloading coolers from the SUV. My mother adjusted the potato salad bowl in her hands like it required deep concentration. Nobody corrected her. Nobody said, "Of course Ava belongs here." That silence told me everything. I crouched beside my daughter. "Put the marshmallows back in the car, sweetheart." She nodded immediately. Too immediately. Kids get fast at recognizing rejection when it keeps happening. Candace sighed behind me. "Oh my God, Elena, don't make this dramatic. It's just a sister's weekend, except her husband was there, and her 2 kids, and our parents, and 3 cousins, a whole house, full of people apparently counted as family except my child." I stood slowly. The wind off the lake smelled like rain and pine. "Needles. You should have told me before I drove 3 hours," I said. Candace crossed her arms. "I assumed you'd understand." That word, assumed, like exclusion was the natural thing. The reasonable thing. The thing I should have expected by now, maybe I should have. Because this hadn't started at the lake house. It started years ago in smaller ways. Christmas stockings for her boys, but not Ava. Accidentally forgetting Ava's birthday. At family dinner. Family photos where Candace always positioned my daughter at the edge, little cuts tiny enough to explain. Away if you hated conflict badly enough. And I did. I spent most of my life confusing peacekeeping with love. After my divorce, when Ava was 4, I worked 2 jobs to survive. Candace stayed home with a husband who made 6. Figures selling medical equipment, but somehow I became the responsible one. The one who handled Mom's prescriptions. The one who paid Dad's overdue property taxes quietly. The one who loaned Candace money during Drew's business setback 3 years. Earlier, $40,000. No. Repayment plan? Just family helping family. Funny phrase. Family helping family. Apparently it had an expiration date when it came to my daughter. Ava came back from the car. Empty-handed. She'd left the marshmallows behind. That broke something in me more than the words. Did Candace smiled tightly. "We'll see you next month at Mom's birthday, okay?" Like she was dismissing a receptionist after an interview. I looked at the front porch, at the rocking chairs I bought, at the outdoor heater I paid for last winter, at the new roof. That one too. See? 6 years ago, Candace and Drew nearly lost this lake house, after Drew gambled half their savings into some disaster investment. Tito Bank was ready to take it. I stepped in, used my inheritance. After the divorce settlement nearly cleaned me out. I told everyone it was temporary. Then, temporary became permanent because every bill somehow drifted toward me after that. Property, taxes, insurance, repairs, dock restoration. I paid them because the lake. House held family memories. Because Ava loved swimming there. Because I thought keeping the place alive meant keeping us together. Standing there in that driveway, I finally understood something. I wasn't family, I was funding it. Drive safe, my mother said quietly. She still wouldn't look at Ava. That was the moment the decision settled inside. Me. Not hot. Not angry. Cold. Clear. took Ava's hand, got back in the car. Neither of us spoke for the first 20 minutes. Trees blurred past the windows in dark green streaks. Then Ava asked softly, "Mom, did I do something wrong?" Every parent has moments that divide their life into before and after. That was one of mine. "No," I said immediately. "You did absolutely nothing wrong." "Then why doesn't Aunt Candace want me there?" I gripped the steering wheel harder. "Because some people only love you when you make them feel important. Because your aunt sees kindness as weakness. Because I taught this family they could use me without consequence. But children deserve lighter truths." She forgot what family means, I said instead. Ava looked out the window after that, and I started making calculations in my head. By Monday morning, I'd called a lawyer. His office overlooked downtown Portland. All gray glass and expensive coffee smells. I slid the lake house documents across his desk. "My name is still on 51% ownership," I said. He adjusted his glasses. "Yes. I want to transfer the rest to my sister." That finally got his attention. "You're giving away your share?" "Yes. Why?" I thought about answering honestly. "Because I'm tired. Because love shouldn't feel like paying rent for a seat at your own table. Because my daughter deserves better than watching me beg to belong." Instead, I just said I'm done carrying it. The paperwork took 4 days. During those 4 days, Candace texted me twice, once to ask if I could send money for termite treatment, once to remind me about Mom's birthday gift contribution. No apology, not one word about Ava. That told me I was making the right decision. Saturday evening, I drove back to the lake house alone. The sunset painted the water orange and gold. Candace opened the door, smiling before confusion replaced it. "Elena?" I held out the envelope. "What's this?" "The house keys," I said. Her forehead wrinkled. "I don't understand. You said the cabin was for family only." She laughed nervously. "Oh my God, are you still upset about that?" I handed her the envelope. Inside were the ownership transfer papers. The tax records, the insurance documents, every bill now legally hers. Her smile disappeared piece by piece as she flipped through. "Them. You transferred your share?" "Yes." "You can't be serious." "I am." "Elena, wait, no." For once in my life, I didn't let her interrupt me. "You were right about one thing," I said calmly. "Family should feel like family." Candace's face paled. "You're punishing me over one misunderstanding?" There it was. The rewriting, the minimizing, the performance. I almost fell for it too. Old habits. Then I remembered Ava quietly leaving the marshmallows in the car because she already understood they weren't wanted. "No," I said softly. "I'm finally believing you." Behind her, I could see the living room lamp glowing warm against the cedar. Walls, the same walls I spent 6 years protecting for people who couldn't spare one chair for my daughter. Candace's voice cracked. "You can't just walk away?" But I already had. That's the strange thing about boundaries. The real ones happen quietly. No screaming, no revenge speech. Just a woman realizing she no longer has to keep buying her place in rooms where her child is unwelcome. I stepped back from the porch. The lake shimmered behind the trees. For the first time in years, it looked beautiful instead of heavy. Candace stood frozen with the keys in her hand. And me? I got into my car, drove home to my daughter, and never paid another bill for that house again. My mother banned my 11-year-old daughter from Thanksgiving 3 days before dinner. She did it over pumpkin pie? That sounds ridiculous now, but family cruelty usually arrives wrapped in something small enough to sound harmless when repeated later. I was standing in my kitchen rolling dough while my daughter Lily sat at the counter coloring little paper turkeys for place cards. My phone buzzed. "Mom," I answered smiling. By the end of the call, my hands were shaking so hard flour fell across the floor like snow. "Your brother already invited too many people," my mother said casually. "So we need to keep things immediate family this year." Immediate family. I stared at the pie crust under my hands. Lily is immediate family, I said carefully. A pause. Then my mother sighed the tired sigh she used whenever she wanted to sound reasonable while being cruel. Well, technically, sweetheart, she's your stepdaughter. The room went quiet around me. Lily looked up from her markers immediately. Kids always know. She's been my daughter for 6 years, I said. And that's wonderful, my mother replied quickly, the way people do when they're about to say something terrible politely. But your brother's kids barely know her, and Randall says holidays should stay traditional. Traditional. That word, as if blood was the only thing that counted, as if love somehow didn't. Lily's real mother died when she was 4. I married her father 2 years later. Then he died in a car accident 18 months after that. So I stayed. I stayed because an 8-year-old little girl sat in a funeral dress gripping my hand like letting go would kill her too. I stayed because she was already mine long before paperwork said so. I adopted her officially last spring. Apparently my family never updated the records in their hearts. I see, I said quietly. Oh, don't make this emotional, my mother said. It's just one dinner. One dinner. That's what people say when they're asking a child to absorb rejection quietly so adults can stay comfortable. Lily had stopped coloring. She stared at me with those wide brown eyes children get right before they pretend not to cry. I smiled immediately because she needed steady more than she needed honest. Everything okay? She asked softly. I covered the phone. Yep, sweetheart. Lie. I'd spent 40 years lying to keep peace in that family. My mother continued talking. And honestly, Randall's under stress right now with the mortgage and the twins' tuition. We can't have unnecessary tension at Thanksgiving. There it was. Randall, my older brother, the golden child, the man who lived in a 5-bedroom house he couldn't afford because for 7 years I quietly covered whatever collapsed behind the scenes. The roof repair, the tuition shortfall, the credit card debt after his business investment. Mom knew all of it because I paid most of it through her, always quietly, always anonymously. Family helping family. Funny phrase. I looked at Lily sitting at the counter trying very hard to color normally while listening to every word. And suddenly, something inside me went still. Not angry. Worse. Done. Okay, I said calmly. Mom paused. Okay? Yes, I understand. She sounded relieved immediately. I knew you'd be mature about this. Mature. In my family, mature meant silent, useful, easy to hurt. I hung up gently. Lily looked at me. Grandma doesn't want me there? No child should ever ask that question, especially not one who already lost enough people. I sat beside her at the counter. Honey, I said carefully, some people think family is only about blood. And you don't? No. She looked down at her paper turkey. Okay, that was all. No tantrum, no tears. Just that tiny, quiet, okay children use when disappointment has become familiar. That nearly destroyed me, because Lily wasn't surprised. Which meant this had been happening longer than I admitted. The smaller gifts at Christmas, the separate family photos, the way Mom called my brother's children my grandbabies, and Lily, your girl. Tiny cuts, tiny enough to excuse individually. Together? A map. That night after Lily went to bed, I opened my banking app, then my spreadsheets. I'm a financial planner. Numbers calm me. People think heartbreak looks dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a woman sitting in pajama pants staring at transactions until the truth finally arranges itself clearly. Over 7 years, I'd paid almost $180,000 keeping my family afloat. Not because they demanded it directly, because they expected it. And I kept saying yes, because being needed felt too much like being loved. Mom's condo association fees. Randall's utilities. Thanksgiving groceries every year, including this one. Especially this one. The turkey had been charged to my card 3 days earlier. Funny. My daughter wasn't welcome at the table, but my visa apparently still was. I stared at the total for a long time. Then I started making calls. Quiet ones. First, the grocery store catering order. "Yes," I said pleasantly. "Please remove my payment method from the Thanksgiving pickup." Then the wine order. Then the florist. Then the utility payment scheduled for Randall's overdue electric bill Friday morning. Cancelled, tap by tap. 7 years of automatic rescue undone in 14 minutes. I slept deeply that night. The kind of sleep that only comes after finally telling yourself the truth. Wednesday morning, my mother called panicking. "Honey, the grocery order says the payment failed." "Yes?" Silence. "What do you mean, yes?" I removed my card. "But Thanksgiving, you said we weren't immediate family. That is not the same thing, and you know it." Actually, I did know it. That was the problem. I finally understood exactly what my role had been. Not daughter, not sister, infrastructure. The invisible support beam everyone leaned on while pretending not to see it. Mom's voice sharpened. "You would ruin Thanksgiving over this?" "No," I said calmly. "You already did that when you excluded my child." "She's not really—" I hung up before she finished, because some sentences should not get completed out loud. Randall called an hour later furious. "Mom's crying. That's unfortunate. You're being unbelievable right now." I almost laughed. Unbelievable. After 7 years of paying his bills, after quietly saving his house twice, after funding holidays my daughter apparently didn't belong at. "You know what's unbelievable?" I asked quietly. "That an 11-year-old little girl lost both parents and still behaves with more grace than the adults in this family." Silence. Then the real panic arrived. "Wait," Randall said slowly. "You canceled the electric payment too?" There it was. Not Lily. Not Thanksgiving. Money. Always, eventually money. I looked around my kitchen. Lily sat nearby building tiny whipped cream snowmen on hot chocolate with complete concentration. Peaceful, safe mine. "Yes," I said. "I canceled everything. Thanksgiving happened without us." Later, my cousin told me the turkey pickup got delayed because nobody had money ready up front. Randall and Mom fought in the kitchen. The power. Company posted a final warning notice on his front door Friday morning. Apparently, reality arrived all at once. Meanwhile, Lily and I spent Thanksgiving at a little diner off Route 8. She ordered pancakes and wore fuzzy socks under her boots. Halfway through breakfast, she looked at me carefully. "Are you sad?" I thought about my mother. My brother, that table. All those years I spent paying for seats we were never truly offered. Then I looked at my daughter smiling over whipped cream. "No," I said honestly. "I think I'm finally full." I'm Naomi, 36, and for 7 years I paid bills with my name attached to nothing. Not the mailbox, not the mortgage, not even the family Christmas cards. But every month, my money moved quietly through that house like electricity. Through walls nobody notices until the lights go out. My mother called it helping family. My sister called it doing my part. I called it love because I didn't know the difference yet. The truth arrived on a Thursday night over pot roast and cold dinner rolls, and my 10-year-old daughter heard every word of it. My mother's dining room always smelled faintly of cinnamon candles and judgment. The same polished oak table. The same framed photos lining the wall. My sister Dana's children filled almost every frame. My daughter Ellie appeared once, half hidden in the back row of a Christmas picture. That night, my mother was planning Easter brunch. 40 people, matching centerpieces, custom menus she absolutely could not afford herself. Dana laughed beside her, scrolling flower arrangements on her phone while I cut Ellie's chicken into smaller pieces. Then my niece asked the question that changed everything. "Where's Ellie sitting this year?" A silence followed, small, sharp. My mother looked up from her wine glass. She's not coming. Ellie froze beside me. Dana didn't even blink. The brunch is getting too crowded, my mother added smoothly. We're keeping it close family only. Close family only. My daughter lowered her fork slowly. I watched her little shoulders pull inward like she was trying to disappear before anyone could look directly at her. I should tell you something about Ellie. She is the kind of child who apologizes when other people step on her feet. Quiet, gentle, careful with hearts. And in that moment, she nodded like she understood she had somehow become extra. "Mom," she whispered beside me, "can we go home?" Dana sighed dramatically. "Oh my God, don't make this into a whole thing." A whole thing. Like excluding a child was a scheduling inconvenience. I looked at my mother, then at the table, then at the wall full of photographs my daughter barely existed in, and something inside me stopped trying. That was the strange part. Not anger, not tears, just stillness, the kind that comes right before a bridge collapses. We left quietly. No slammed doors, no yelling. Ellie stared out the car window the whole drive home. Halfway there, she finally asked, "Am I not really family?" I gripped the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. "You are my family," I said carefully. But Grandma said close family. Children hear the words adults wish they didn't mean. I didn't answer right away because the honest answer was ugly. Instead, I said, "Sometimes people confuse love with ownership." She frowned at that. I don't think she understood. Honestly, neither did I yet. That night, after Ellie went to bed, I opened my laptop and looked at 7 years of payments. The house on Willow Lane sat entirely in my name. My mother and Dana lived there together after Dana's divorce. 7 years earlier, when the bank threatened foreclosure, I bought the place outright. Cash. I told myself it was temporary. Family helping family. I paid the taxes, insurance, water bill, roof repairs, the furnace replacement during the winter freeze, Dana's car insurance after her rough patch, every birthday dinner, every catered holiday, every folding chair and floral arrangement for parties where my daughter apparently didn't belong. I scrolled to the total. The number made my stomach tighten. Not because of the money, because of what it bought me. Nothing. Not loyalty, not kindness. Certainly not a seat for my child, just access to keep using me. The next morning, Dana called before 9. No apology, no mention of Ellie. "Hey," she said brightly. "Mom forgot to ask if you can cover the brunch deposit today." I leaned back in my office chair. The brunch Ellie isn't invited to? A pause. Then irritation. "Naomi, come on. It's not personal." Not personal. As if rejection hurts less when delivered casually. You know Mom gets stressed hosting. And excluding my daughter relaxes her? Dana exhaled sharply. "You always make everything emotional." No. Actually, I had spent 7 years making everything financial. That was the problem. "I won't be paying for Easter," I said calmly. Silence. Then a laugh. A real one. Because she thought I was joking. "Okay," she said. "But seriously, they need the deposit by Friday." I heard you. And? And I said no. The line went completely quiet. I think that was the first moment Dana realized the floor beneath her might not actually belong to her. 3 hours later, my mother called. Crying already. She always cried before accountability arrived. How could you punish us like this over one misunderstanding? Misunderstanding. Such a soft word for cruelty. "You told my daughter she wasn't family." "I never said that. You said family only." "She took it wrong." "No, she took it exactly the way it was intended." I stared out my office window at the parking lot below. Then I said the sentence that changed all our lives. "You should probably start preparing to pay your own bills." Silence. cold and immediate. What does that mean? It means I'm done funding people who hurt my child. My mother's voice hardened instantly. After years, I finally heard it clearly. Not sadness, entitlement. You owe this family. There it was, the truth, not gratitude. Debt. I hung up before she could say anything else. Then I called my attorney. 3 days later, I had new paperwork drafted. I transferred the house fully into my mother and sister's names. No mortgage, no strings, no future leverage, just ownership. Real ownership, including every bill attached to it. I also removed my accounts from everything connected to the property. Utilities, insurance, auto payments, subscriptions, all of it. 7 years disappeared in 40 minutes. That Saturday, Easter brunch still happened. Of course it did. My mother cared more about appearances than oxygen. At 1:15 p.m., while everyone sat, beneath rented flower arches and pastel decorations I no longer funded, a courier arrived. Large envelope, house keys inside, along with the deed transfer, and one typed letter. The house is officially yours now. All financial support ends today. You said my daughter wasn't family, so family should no longer need my name on the bills. I heard later the entire table went silent. Dana apparently read the letter twice. My mother cried, again. But the loudest part came when the restaurant manager approached asking who would be covering the remaining balance, because for years nobody had learned how expensive their kindness actually was. I wasn't there to watch it happen. That mattered to me. Ellie and I were at the aquarium 2 towns over eating soft pretzels beside the stingray tank. She laughed when one splashed her sleeve. Really laughed, the kind without hesitation in it. My phone buzzed nonstop in my purse. Mother, Dana. Mother again. I turned it face down and bought my daughter another pretzel. That was the moment everything became clear. I had spent years teaching people they could wound us and still reach into my wallet afterward. And they believed me, because I kept proving it true, until I stopped. The hardest thing I ever learned was this. Some people only save you a seat when you're paying for the table. So I left the table entirely. And suddenly, they had to see who'd been carrying it all along. I'm Claire, 38, and my family spent 8 years pretending my daughter was temporary. Not unwanted exactly. That would have been easier to confront. No. Lily was treated the way people treat a chair they don't like but haven't thrown away yet. Ignored when possible, shifted politely to the edge when necessary, and every single time I noticed, someone told me I was too sensitive. The final cut came at our annual family reunion, a white tent by Lake Harmony. 42 relatives, matching t-shirts. Professional photographer. My aunt called it celebrating the whole family. My 9-year-old daughter learned otherwise 3 days before the event. She was sitting cross-legged on our living room floor coloring when my cousin Heather called. Speakerphone. Bad timing. Claire, Heather said brightly. Quick thing about Saturday. We're trying to simplify the head count this year. I already knew that tone. The careful, cheerful voice people use before saying something ugly. What kind of simplification? A pause. Then softly, we thought maybe Lily could skip this one. My daughter stopped coloring, completely still. Skip it, I repeated. Well, technically the reunion is for blood relatives only this year. Blood relatives. There are sentences that enter a room like smoke. Slowly. Then suddenly everywhere. Lily looked up at me from the carpet. Her father died when she was 2. I married into this family 5 years later. The Whitakers never said cruel things directly. They specialized in gentle exclusions. No Christmas stocking. No name on birthday cakes. No school photos on the memory wall at Grandma's house. Always small enough to deny. Always large enough to scar. She's 9, I said quietly. Heather sighed. You know how Uncle Ron is about traditions. Traditions. Families hide behind that word when they want cruelty to sound inherited instead of chosen. I looked at Lily, still silent, still listening. "Okay," I said calmly. Heather sounded relieved immediately. "Thank you for understanding." I hung up. Lily stared at her coloring page for a long moment before asking the question I had spent years dreading. "Am I not really part of your family?" "Your family, not ours." That hurt more than Heather. I sat beside her on the floor. "You are my family." "But not theirs?" "Children always walk straight toward the truth adults spend years avoiding." I pulled her into my arms and felt how small she still was, too small to already understand rejection this well. That night I lay awake beside my husband Daniel, listening to the ceiling fan turn slowly overhead. "They can't keep doing this," I whispered. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. He looked exhausted, not surprised. "That was worse. They think it's easier this way," he said quietly. "Easier. As if excluding a child reduced administrative burden." "Do you hear yourself?" He didn't answer. Because he did hear it, and somewhere deep down he knew silence had made him part of it. I met Daniel when Lily was 4. He was patient, steady. The first man who loved her without hesitation. But his family? That was different. To them, Lily was the child from before, the reminder that I had another life before the Whitakers, another man, another name. They tolerated her because Daniel loved me, but they never fully opened the circle, and I let myself believe time would soften them. Time softens bread, not character. The reunion was Saturday afternoon. Friday night, my mother-in-law Barbara called, her voice syrupy sweet. "Claire, I heard Heather spoke to you." "She did." "I hope you understand this isn't personal." I almost laughed. Nothing becomes more personal than excluding a child. "We just want things simple for the photos this year," she continued. "Only direct Whitaker descendants. Only direct descendants." Lily had spent 5 years calling this woman Grandma. Barbara accepted handmade birthday cards from her, accepted hugs, accepted love, just not publicly. "I see," I said, "and we'd still love to see you and Daniel there. Just not my daughter." Barbara lowered her voice slightly. "You know how older family members talk." Yes, I did know. That was the problem. Nobody ever stopped them. After the call ended, I walked into Lily's room. She was pretending to read. Pretending badly. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "would you rather stay home Saturday and have our own day?" She looked at me carefully. Children know when adults are trying to protect them from humiliation. "Do they not want me there?" I sat beside her bed. I thought about lying. Then I thought about how many years this family had survived through polite lies. "No," I said softly, "they don't." Her little face tightened for 1 second. Then she nodded like she had expected it all along. That nearly destroyed me. The next morning, I opened a lockbox in my office. Inside were documents nobody in Daniel's family had ever seen. 5 years earlier, when Daniel's father's construction company nearly collapsed, I saved it, not Daniel, me. I used inheritance money from Lily's biological father, money left specifically for her future, $200,000. Quietly, transferred through my business account to keep the Whitaker company alive. Barbara cried when the deal closed, called it a miracle. They never knew whose money saved them. Daniel knew, and because his father begged for privacy, we never told the family. I agreed because I thought protecting their dignity mattered. Funny what love convinces women to hide. By noon Saturday, I had made copies of everything. Transfer records, signed agreements, the repayment schedule they never completed, the original letter from Daniel's father thanking Lily by name because the money came from her inheritance. At 2:15, Daniel watched me place the documents into a large cream envelope. You're really doing this? Yes. He looked sick. Not because it was wrong, because it was true. The reunion took place beside the lake under a massive white tent. Music, barbecue smoke, children running through the grass, and hanging near the entrance, a giant framed family tree poster. Every child's name listed beneath their parents, except Lily's. I stared at the empty branch beside mine. An omission so deliberate it almost impressed me. Barbara greeted us wearing pastel blue and practiced innocence. Claire, she smiled tightly. Daniel. Then her eyes flicked behind us. No, Lily. Visible relief crossed her face before she could stop it. That was the moment I stopped feeling guilty. People gathered for group photos around 4. Whitaker bloodline first, Uncle Ron announced proudly. I walked toward the center before anyone could begin. I actually brought something important, I said calmly. 40 people looked at me. I handed the cream envelope to Barbara. Her smile faltered immediately. What's this? Truth, I said. She opened it slowly. At first confusion, then recognition, then absolute panic. Daniel's father went pale beside her. The papers shook in her hands as she read the transfer amount, then the letter, the one addressed to Lily. Thank you for saving this family. The silence spread fast. Heavy. Total. I looked around the tent. At the last reunion, I said evenly, everyone praised this family business for surviving hard times. Nobody moved. Nobody mentioned it survived because a 4-year-old little girl lost her father. Barbara whispered my name like a warning. I ignored her. The inheritance left to Lily paid your debts. Saved your company. Saved this property. I gestured around the lake house. And every year since, you've treated her like she contaminated your bloodline. No one spoke. Because no one could. Truth does that sometimes. It removes every available exit. Uncle Ron stared at the papers like they burned. Heather looked physically ill. Then Daniel's father did something unexpected. He stood slowly, turned toward the giant family tree poster, and said quietly, "Put her name on it." Nobody moved. His voice cracked harder the second time. "Put her name on it." A cousin grabbed a marker, added Lily beneath mine with shaking hands. Too late, that was the tragedy. Not the missing name. The years it took them to notice it mattered. I left before dinner started. Daniel followed me silently to the parking lot. You were right, he whispered finally. No, Lily was right. She asked the real question days earlier. Am I not really part of your family? And standing there beside the lake while 40 relatives avoided my eyes, I finally understood the answer. Family isn't the people who accept a child's love privately while erasing her publicly. Family is the people who would never make her ask that question in the first place. I'm Laura, 37, and I learned the exact moment my daughter stopped being one of them. It happened over a dinner table that had seen too many rehearsed smiles. My mother's house always smelled like lemon polish and control. Everything in it had a place, including people. My daughter, Ava, 10 years old, sat beside me quietly picking at her food, while my aunt discussed the upcoming family anniversary dinner, 40 years of marriage. A big event, a legacy celebration, then my mother said it, not loudly. Not angrily, calm, almost thoughtful. She's not really one of ours. A fork froze midair. Aunt Denise stopped talking. Even the air seemed to hesitate. I looked up slowly. What did you say? My mother sipped her wine like she hadn't just split a child from a family tree. Ava, she clarified as if that made it softer. She's not really one of ours. You know what I mean? No, I didn't, and I think she knew that. Ava didn't speak. She just looked down at her plate, suddenly very interested in the peas she wasn't eating anymore. My sister Karen gave a small, nervous laugh. Mom didn't mean it like that, she said quickly. It's just, you and Daniel separated early. It's complicated. Complicated. That word always appears when people don't want to say they've already made a decision about your worth. I put my fork down. slowly, carefully. "So what is she then?" I asked. My mother leaned back. "A guest," she said simply. "She's your responsibility, of course. But she's not blood." A guest, 10 years old. A guest at her own grandmother's table. Ava's hands tightened around her napkin. She didn't cry. That was the part that hurt the most. She was learning how to disappear without leaving the room. "Mom," I said quietly. "She's your granddaughter." My mother tilted her head. A technicality. Something inside me shifted, not loudly, not violently, just permanently. I stood up. "Come on, Ava." My daughter looked at me, unsure. "Is something wrong?" she whispered. "No," I said softly. "But we're leaving." My mother sighed like I was being dramatic again. "You always do this. Laura, you make everything emotional." Maybe. Or maybe I had just stopped pretending it wasn't. We walked out without another word. Behind us, no one stopped us. No one called her name. That silence followed us all the way to the car. That night, Ava didn't ask questions. She just sat on her bed, scrolling through a drawing app like she was trying to erase the day with color. Stood in the hallway for a long time. Because I finally understood something I had been avoiding for years. My daughter wasn't being excluded by accident. She was being categorized, placed, filed under less important in a family that claimed to love her, and I had allowed it not anymore. The next morning, my mother called. Her voice was light again, like nothing had happened. "About last night," she said. "Don't be so sensitive. It creates tension." "Tension," I repeated. "Yes. And the anniversary is important. I don't want drama over semantics." Semantics. Another word for dismissing pain without acknowledging it. "I won't be attending," I said. A pause, then a laugh. "Oh, don't be ridiculous." "I'm serious." Her tone shifted immediately. "You would skip your own mother's celebration over this?" "Over this. As if my child's worth was an inconvenience." "Yes," I said. Silence again. Then colder. "Fine," she said. "But don't expect us to rearrange everything for a child who doesn't even fully belong." That was the second time she said it. And somehow, worse than the first, I hung up and I made a decision. Not impulsive, not emotional. Final. For years, I had funded things I wasn't included in emotionally. Family trips, celebrations, emergency repairs, a cottage my parents still lived in rent-free. My name was on everything. And yet, my daughter wasn't on their list. So I opened my laptop and I started removing my name, one account at a time. The property, the utilities, the shared family fund I had quietly supported for years, just in case. Just in case of what? In case I needed to keep buying belonging. It took less than an hour to undo what had taken a decade to build, and I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. 3 days later, my sister Karen called, panic already in her voice. "Laura, did you do something to the accounts?" "Yes." The anniversary deposits bounced. "The venue is calling. Mom is losing it." "I'm sure she'll manage. You can't just pull everything like that. People are counting on it." There it was. Not concern for Ava, not apology, just inconvenience. I was also counting on my daughter being treated like family, I said quietly. Silence, then softer. "More careful." She didn't mean it like that. Mom is old-fashioned. Old-fashioned. A polite way of saying outdated cruelty is still acceptable. "I know exactly what she meant," I said, and I hung up. 2 days before the anniversary, a courier arrived at my door. A formal envelope. Inside, seating charts, finalized menus, and a printed family. Program Ava's name was not anywhere. Not even in the margins. I didn't cry, I didn't shake. I just sat at my kitchen table and looked at it for a long time. Then I placed it inside a box and added one thing, the deed to the cottage, the one I had been paying for, the one they believed was still family property, the one they had been enjoying. Without ever acknowledging the cost, and I wrote one letter. Not angry. Not long. Just truth. You said she is not one of yours, so I will respect that fully. All financial ties end today. The house, the accounts, the arrangements, everything returns to its rightful ownership. You are free from us, and we are free from you. I signed it. Nothing dramatic. No final speech. Just closure. On the day of the anniversary, I didn't go. Neither did Ava. We went instead to the lake. She skipped stones while I sat watching her grow lighter with every throw. At exactly 4:12 p.m., my phone started ringing, my mother, then my sister, then my uncle. Voicemails stacked one after another, confusion first, then anger, then panic. By the fifth call, my mother's voice cracked through. "Laura, what did you do?" Not, "I'm sorry," not, "We were wrong." Just that. "What did you do?" I looked at Ava laughing by the water, and I realized something simple. They had mistaken my silence for acceptance, my support for obligation, my love for dependence, and my daughter's worth for negotiable. I turned my phone off, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had taken something away. I felt like I had finally brought something home. My daughter didn't need a family that debated her existence. She needed one that didn't. I'm Rachel, 35, and I learned something about my mother the night she made my daughter cry in front of 12 people. It wasn't that she was cruel. I already knew that. It was that she believed she was justified. Dinner was supposed to be a celebration. My mother's 60th birthday. A long table at a high-end restaurant she picked because, in her words, class matters. My daughter, Emily, 11 years old, wore a navy dress she had chosen herself. She kept smoothing it down like she was trying to make herself smaller and more acceptable at the same time. I noticed that. I always notice her when she does that. It started with a toast. My uncle stood up, lifted his glass, and began talking about family pride, legacy, strong women in our bloodline. My mother smiled like she was receiving a medal. Then Emily quietly reached for a bread roll, and my mother stopped. "Everything! Not like that," she said sharply. The table went still. Emily froze. My mother leaned back, scanning her like she was correcting a mistake. "You're chewing too fast," she said. "It's not very refined." A few awkward laughs came from the table, the kind people do when they don't want to choose sides. Emily swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. That should have ended it. It didn't." My mother tilted her head. "And your posture. Sit properly. Honestly, Rachel, don't you teach her anything?" That was aimed at me. Not her. Me. I felt the air tighten in my chest. "I think she's fine," I said quietly. My mother waved her hand like I had spoken out of turn. "She's a lovely child, but she needs guidance if she's going to fit in with this family. Fit in." Emily stopped eating. She stared at her plate like it had become unsafe. I saw it happening in real time. That shift. The internal retreat children make when they decide they are wrong to exist loudly. Then my mother said, "Not loud, not angry, just final." Honestly, she embarrasses me a little. Silence. Complete. Emily's fork slipped from her hand and clinked against the plate. She looked at me. Not crying yet. Worse. Waiting. For me to fix it. I reached across the table and took her hand. "We're leaving," I said. My mother laughed. "Oh, don't be dramatic, Rachel. It's just feedback." Feedback. Like my daughter was an employee who underperformed. I stood up anyway. Emily stood too quickly, knocking her chair slightly back. The sound felt too loud in the restaurant. "I'm done here," I said. My mother's smile faded. "You're really going to ruin my birthday over this?" Over this, as if humiliation was small. When it wasn't happening to her, I looked at Emily. Her eyes were wet now, but she wasn't crying. She was trying not to. That hurt worse than anything my mother said. "We're leaving?" I repeated. And we did. No goodbye. No apology. Just footsteps on polished floor and a child trying not to fall apart in public. Outside, Emily finally broke. I didn't mean to embarrass her, she whispered. You didn't, I said immediately. But I knew what mattered more, that she believed she had. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying it. Every word, every pause, every moment, my mother chose image over kindness, and I realized something I had been avoiding for years. My mother didn't correct Emily because she cared. She corrected her because she believed she had authority to diminish her. Because I had never taken that authority away. The next morning, my mother called. Her voice was light again, like nothing had happened. I hope you've calmed down, she said. I meant what I said. She needs discipline. She's a child, I replied, and she's part of this family. She should act like it. A pause, then the sentence that sealed everything. If she can't handle correction, maybe she doesn't belong at events like this. Something in me went still, not angry, not emotional, just decided. You're right, I said. She sounded satisfied immediately. Good. I'm glad you're being reasonable. I hung up, and I called my bank, not to complain, not to negotiate, to remove every connection. I had two accounts I had been quietly maintaining for years. My mother's credit line, the family emergency fund, the joint account used for gatherings, gifts, renovations, repairs. All of it. Every automatic transfer I had justified as helping. I stopped helping. By afternoon, my phone started lighting up, my aunt first, then my uncle, then my mother. Confusion at first, then irritation, then panic. What did you do? My mother demanded when I finally answered. I closed the accounts. You can't just do that. We have commitments? No, I said calmly. You had dependents, silence, then sharper. This is because of one comment? It's because of years of them. Another pause. Then her voice changed, lower, controlled. You're punishing your family. No, I said. I'm protecting my daughter. And I hung up again. 2 days later, I received an email from the restaurant. My mother's birthday dinner had an unpaid. Balance deposits were insufficient. The credit card on file had been declined. They needed resolution. Forwarded it without comment. That evening, my mother showed up at my house. I could hear her before I opened the door. Frustration wrapped in entitlement. This is ridiculous. Rachel. Emily was upstairs. I kept my voice low. You embarrassed my child in public, I said. I gave honest feedback. You humiliated her. She'll survive it. That sentence, she'll survive it. Like survival was the standard for love. I stared at her. And for the first time, I didn't see my mother as authority. I saw her as someone who had mistaken power for care. I won't be funding anything anymore, I said. Her expression shifted. You're seriously cutting us off? Yes, she scoffed. Over a dinner comment? No, I said quietly. Over who you've decided my daughter is allowed to be in your life. That landed differently. Could see it. Because this wasn't about money, it was about control, and she had just lost it. She left, without another word. The silence after her footsteps felt different. Not empty. Clean. Days passed. Messages stopped. Then came the final event. The family group chat announcement for the next gathering. My mother had written, family only. No exceptions this time. No name. No mention of Emily. Just absence made. Official. I read it once. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I removed myself from every shared financial system tied to them. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just completely. No announcements, no explanations, just closure. The fallout came later. Bills unpaid, reservations canceled, plans collapsing under assumptions that I would quietly fix everything like before. But I didn't. because the truth had finally become simple. If my daughter had to earn her place at the table, then the table was not ours. That weekend, Emily and I went to the lake. She threw stones into the water, counting each splash like a game. At one point, she looked at me and asked, "Are we still going to see Grandma?" I thought carefully before answering. "Yes," I said, "but only if she remembers who you are without conditions." Emily nodded like that made sense. And maybe it did. Because love that requires humiliation isn't love, it's permission, and I was done granting it. I used to think family meant endurance. That love meant staying no matter how heavy it became. But watching my daughter that night taught me something I should have learned years ago. Love doesn't humiliate you. Love doesn't exclude you. And when it does, walking away isn't cruelty, it's protection. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop showing up where your child is made to feel small.